On WWE Raw, we witnessed the return of Eva Marie after 4 long years. WWE booked her in a match against Naomi, but she surprised fans by revealing she wasn't alone.
Okay, Jimmy, I read
Piper Niven, her new friend client, is WWE Raw's newest superstar, and she's one with a ton of potential. Wrestling since the age of 18, Piper Niven is now a seasoned veteran. She's easily one of wrestling's most promising superstars and works harder than anyone. Part of the NXT UK roster from 2017, Niven has faced the likes of Toni Storm, Kaylee Ray, Jazzy Gabbard and more. She bounced around various independent promotions in the UK after her debut. Niven wrestled under the name Viper, for promotions, like Insane Championship Wrestling, World of Sport, and Stardom. She held titles like the first ICW Women's Championship, World of Sport Women's Championship and the SWA World Championship in Japan. Her NXT UK career kicked off in 2019, but she entered the WWE World in 2017. She debuted in the Mae Young Classic, beating the likes of Santana Garrett, Serena Deeb, but losing to Toni Storm in the 3rd round. Niven announced herself on NXT UK by confronting former champion Rhea Ripley and defeating Zelina Vega at Worlds Collide. Her breakout performance came at NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool, where she faced Toni Storm and Kaylee Ray for the NXT UK Women's Championship. Niven busted out a Canadian destroyer on Toni and nearly pinned her. But the Kaylee Ray stole the win, and extended her humongous title reign. To be fair, Piper Niven deserves the opportunity to wrestle on the main roster. She's a different type of female wrestler, and is way too talented to be sidelined. While it's too soon to assess whether she's championship material, one wouldn't be surprised if Niven's rise to the top is easy as compared to the likes of the 4 Horsewomen. Her NXT UK performances are enough to convince people she doesn't play around and she's here to win. Don't misunderstand her bubbly personality, as she could Michinoku driver your head into the canvas, or deliver a spine-shattering German suplex. On Raw, she replaced Eva Marie in her match against Naomi and picked up a dominant win. Tonight was the best way for WWE to bring back Eva Marie but also put over Piper Niven in a massive way. WWE Raw once again featured Alexa Bliss in a very prominent role. Her spooky gimmick has impressed many, and she picked up a fairly big win on Raw. She took on her former friend Nia Jax in a WrestleMania 34 rematch, which featured one too many spooky and bizarre moments. As expected, Bliss's match with Nia Jax saw the larger opponent dominate for most of the duration. Bliss had a few moments of offense and a few flurries, but Jax's power overcame her. Fortunately for Bliss, she had an ace up her sleeve that allowed her to get the better of Nia Jax. Bliss did Bray Wyatt's spider walk, which freaked out her opponent. After that, the psychological advantage went to Bliss. The former Raw Women's Champion even channeled her inner Undertaker, and sat up like him, but in a cross-legged position. Having taken the fight to her opponent, Bliss hit a DDT and looked to hit Twisted Bliss for the win, only for Reginald to interfere. Having his face almost burnt off a bunch of times from Alexa wasn't enough, and he tested her anger once again. However, Alexa went in another direction to make Reginald suffer. After the bell rang, Alexa glared at Reginald, who slowly locked eyes with Bliss. As Bliss tilted her head, Reginald tilted his, showing that Alexa had hypnotized or put him in a trance. As Bliss left the ring, the spell broke, and he snapped out of the trance. With the progression of her storylines with the Raw Women's division, all signs point towards a singles run for Alexa Bliss. She's already faced and dominated Asuka when she held the Raw Women's Championship. She took down Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, and her goal now is to regain the title she hasn't held in ages. At Hell in a Cell, Bliss will most likely challenge Shayna Baszler to a singles match. The former UFC fighter had a rough night last week, with Bliss and Lilly's antics. At Hell in a Cell, she will look to put this Bliss chapter in her rear view glass her as fast as she can. If WWE put the title on Bliss, it'll be a questionable move. However, it'll show that the company has faith in her abilities as a performer and character.
Hold up.
Sasha Banks had one of the most successful runs in 2020. She not only held the Raw Women's Championship and the Women's Tag Team Championship together at one point but also dethroned her former best friend Bayley for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. The year was so good for the boss that the Slammy Award for Female Superstar of the Year also went to her. Without a doubt, she truly deserved it after all the hard work she has put in over the years. But hardly a few know how the legit bosses made her way to the WWE. How Sasha Banks got her WWE break. This decade is ending with Sasha Banks holding the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship. This is her 6th reign as Women's Champion on the main roster. But the blueprint was nowhere near the WWE fold when the decade started. Sasha Banks debuted on the independent circuit as Mercedes KV and wrestled for promotions such as Chaotic Wrestling and the National Wrestling Alliance (NWA). In her time in CW, she won the Chaotic Wrestling Women's Championship and held it for 259 days. She later relinquished the title after signing with WWE. Banks attended a WWE tryout in June 2012 and didn't hear from the company for a couple of months. WWE announced on August 18, 2012 that they had signed her to a contract. Snoop Dogg's cousin made her NXT debut later that year in December in a losing effort against Paige. Rest is history. After spending a couple of years in a team with Summer Rae, Sasha Banks quick ascended the ranks as she inserted herself in the NXT Women's Championship picture. Sasha Banks and her former best friend Bayley ignited a personal rivalry for the NXT Women's Championship. This rivalry saw both women put on a series of spectacular matches that had never been seen on WWE TV before. Banks wrestled her last match on NXT against Bayley in a splendid Iron Woman match, the first in WWE history. Banks' arrival on the roster alongside the other 3 horsewomen really gave WWE's women's division a breath of fresh air. These women made a mark for themselves unlike any other in the past. Sasha Banks' rise to the top was phenomenal, but it came at the expense of pure dedication and hard work. So that's how Sasha Banks came to the WWE and made it big. It's a fairy tale, but if you chase your dreams hard enough, you'll eventually get there no matter how fast or slow it happens. Personally, I say, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment.
Oh, let me up with a bright smile on now. Put me in the dark, don't won't get lost now. To the moonlight, eyes you